So to kick things off, I just start by doing a really rough template of my design. I'm framing things in on the skin using my yellow marker. And I use my yellow marker for my base layer. I keep it really rough, really loose. And at this stage of the game, I'm just framing things in based on my design, which you can see on the left-hand side here. I put that up on the screen as a reference for you, so you can kind of gauge where I'm at in my drawing. I'm just using some circles and some lines in order to frame in the general placement for the different mushrooms in my design. And you can see how nice and loose this is. I'm being really rough on the skin. There's a lot of gesture drawing that's coming into play here. This is why it's so important to study the foundations of art and design and to practice drawing or painting or some other medium like that. Because oftentimes I see people when they're drawing designs on the skin, they want to get right to the details. They want to get really refined, and that doesn't happen until the later stages of the game. So now that I've got my everything roughed in with my yellow, I'm going in with my orange, and I'm going to start to refine things just a little bit more. You can see I'm using some circles and some curved shapes just to define the shapes of my mushroom caps here. And at this stage of the game, it's still really rough. We've still got multiple layers to our drawing that we're going to apply afterwards. So I'm not too concerned about having my shapes perfect and in the correct place. I'm just roughly mapping things in right now. I really like drawing designs right on my client's skin because it gives a more natural feel to the overall look of the tattoo. It's going to allow me to use the actual muscle placements and curves and shapes, peaks, valleys of the client's skin, of the client's body in order to really customize my design to give them something that fits according to their unique body, because no two arms, no two legs, no two bodies are the same. So it gives me this really nice custom feel to the design that you might not get if you're using a stencil. Unfortunately, I cut my client a little bit when I was shaving them. The razors that we have in the shop are super sharp, so you'll see me keep dabbing that side of the wrist to try and clean up that blood. And I'm just going through with my orange still, and I'm marking in the frame, the exteriors of my design, so that I just kind of have a placement map of where everything's going to fit in. The great thing about mushrooms is you can twist them, you can distort them, you can pretty much do whatever you want to them, and I can still make them look like mushrooms. So on the risk scale for drawing something on, this is a very, very, very low risk design because I can really easily change things up and it's still going to look great. It's not like a portrait where your eyes have to be the exact placement or the nose has to be exactly right. It's not like that. So if you're new to freehand drawing, when you're tattooing, do things that are really organic and really easy. And you can see how if I don't like where my lines are, I just make another line. And that's the beauty of using this multi-step process with Sharpies, because I'm just gonna correct that in my next layers. Like you can see how rough and loose and messy this thing is, and that's what I want at this stage of the game. So at this point, I got my client to stand up, and I always want to check things out in a natural standing position, because when they're laying down, when their arm's on the armrest or whatever placement you're working on, things get distorted. The armrest tends to push and it changes the shape of the body. So you don't want to go through and draw your whole design on only to realize that things don't look right when you get to the final stages. Now you can see I'm using my red and I'm going in, and I'm going to make things a little bit even more refined at this stage of the game. I want to pay a little bit more attention to where my lines are, being a little bit more deliberate and precise with my drawing. Still using my red, just cleaning things up as I go, just committing more to where my lines are, where my shapes are. Now we used the yellow and the orange on the previous layers to create a rough template of where everything is going to go. And now it's my job to go and just to clean those things up, because I've already mapped out the general shapes and the composition of my design in previous layers. So now I can go through more confidently and actually refine things to put my lines where I want them to be. And you'll see how I have a mess of orange underneath this red, but using the red, I can start to decide and commit to where I actually want these lines to be. And you can see that I'm moving my client's arm around as I'm doing this. I want to make sure that I can put them in a position where it's easiest for me to be able to do my drawing. So if that means rotating the arm, getting them to stand up, sit down, bend over backwards, whatever it is, I'm going to do that because I want to make sure that I'm able to get my drawing where it needs to be. Okay, so now that my reds are done, I take my purple Sharpie and I go through and I'm going to create my final stencil. So this is me being the most refined throughout my process, and I'm really committing 100% to where I want my lines and my shapes to be. So this is going to be the time where I'm the most methodical, I'm the most deliberate, I'm the most intentional, and I'm really paying a lot of attention to where I want things to be for the final placement. Now, of course, I could use some alcohol and a paper towel and wipe something off and redo it if I needed to, but ideally that's not the case. I want to be able to go through with my purple and create my final stencil as I want it to be tattooed on the skin. If you haven't checked out my video tutorial on drawing a freehand rose, then you might want to check that out because it gives you more insights into this process, and you can actually follow along with me to create a rose tattoo design mimicking the freehand style on the iPad Pro. Alternatively, you could just grab some Sharpies and some paper and do this on paper without any type of technology, and it's going to be a similar process. Really, the main idea here is that we're not erasing anything. There's no undo button, there's no redo. Like I said, you can use alcohol and wipe things off. That's not the purpose here. The purpose is to create a really rough map with our yellow. We refine it a little bit more with the orange. We refine it again, even more so with the reds. And then we come through with our purple to create our final stencil layer. And again, this purple line is where I want to actually be tattooing once I get to that stage of the process. Overall, it took me about half an hour to draw this design on the skin, plus like another 10-15 minutes for setup and another 10-15 minutes just to let things dry. So it does take a little bit more time to draw things on, but it's part of the experience, and clients like that. Clients feel like it's impressive when you can draw a design on the skin, and it just adds to that overall experience that they get when they're coming in the studio to get a tattoo done. Again, I'm rotating the arm to make sure that I get the position I need so that I can draw things on nicely. And now at this stage, I'm going back in with my red just to add some of those background flares. I don't need to be too precise or methodical or go through that multi-step process, because these are just going to be those glowing blue spherical circles that you see in the background of my design here. And now that that's done, I go in with my spray stuff and I give it a spray, and this is just going to help to lock in my stencil so that it's harder to wipe away when I get into the tattoo process, because it's really easy to just wipe away all your marker on your first wipe. Then what do you do?